Okay, let's jump right into something I know many of you have probably felt. You understand English really well, right? When you're listening, maybe reading something. But then when it comes to actually speaking, like poof, the words just vanish. You feel like they're right there in your head, but getting them out, that's another story. Sound familiar?
Oh, definitely. It's an incredibly common thing people experience, and honestly, super frustrating.
Right.
That feeling of knowing you've got the words, you understand the grammar, but then when you need to speak, everything just feels stuck.
Well, if that's you, you are absolutely not alone. And that's exactly what we're doing a deep dive on today. We've been looking into this whole challenge, including hearing from people like Alex and Riley who've been through it to sort of figure out why this gap happens, between understanding and speaking.
And more importantly, what are some practical steps you can actually take? Things that can genuinely help build up that speaking confidence.
Exactly. Our goal is to explore what we've found, pull out the useful bits, the insights that offer a clear way forward based on what really worked for others who faced this exact same issue.
So let's maybe start by unpacking why this happens. What's the deal? Why can you understand but then struggle to speak?
Good question. Where do we start?
Well, the main thing's the difference between what we call passive and active language skills. See, when you're listening to English or reading, you're mostly using passive skills.
Passive skills.
Yeah.
Okay. Like taking information in.
Exactly. You're receiving it, processing it. Your brain's busy absorbing words, phrases, how sentences are put together. It's all going in.
Right. So your brain is like a really good receiver for all that English data.
Precisely. But speaking, that's an active skill. It needs you to go find that stored information, organize it, and then actually produce the language, all in real time.
Ah, okay. So you have to retrieve the words, put them in order.
You can get them out coherently, quickly.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, isn't it? Like Riley mentioned, it feels like the words are stuck in a box. You understand perfectly, but the mechanism for getting the words out, it just isn't quite there yet. And like you said, incredibly frustrating.
It really is. And that frustration, it can easily make you just, avoid speaking. Try not to put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I could see that.
But here's the crucial thing to get. This gap between understanding and speaking. It's completely normal.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong or you're a bad English learner. It's just, it's a different skill, one you need to practice and develop separately.
It makes me think of learning to ride a bike.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You can watch videos, right? You can understand the physics, balance, pedaling, steering. You get all the theory, the passive knowledge. But until you actually get on the bike and try to do it, try to coordinate everything at once, you haven't built the active skill of riding.
Exactly. Speaking is very much like that. It takes practice doing it.
And here's the really encouraging bit, I think. If you can understand English well, you've already done the hardest part, maybe.
You've definitely built a strong foundation. All that listening, all that reading, it's packed your brain with the vocabulary, the grammar, the sentence structures. They're already in there.
So the raw materials are there.
Absolutely. Speaking is mostly about learning how to access and use what you already know. It's totally a skill you can build.
Okay, but let's talk about the big hurdle. The thing that stops so many people when they try to make that jump from understanding to speaking. Fear.
Ah, fear. Yes, the fear of stuffing up, making mistakes.
Or being judged.
Right. Or just freezing, not knowing what to say. It's a powerful barrier. It can stop you before you even begin.
Alex shared that for a long time, he would just overthink every single word before he said anything. He'd worry, is this the right word? Is my grammar okay? Will I sound stupid? And, most of the time, the fear just won. He'd end up saying nothing at all.
And that's such a common story. So many people feel that. But the insight here, the thing to really grab onto is this. Mistakes aren't failures. They are essential steps. Part of the process.
Nobody expects perfection, right?
Not at all. Anyone who speaks a language fluently now, they made tons of mistakes getting there. Countless mistakes.
It's actually how your brain learns, isn't it? Figuring out what works and what doesn't, like kids learning to talk.
Exactly. Think about toddlers. They babble, they mix up words, make all sorts of errors, but they just keep going, keep trying things out, no fear.
That's true. And Riley, She had this very interesting realization about the fear itself.
Oh, yeah.
She started noticing that in like actual conversations. Most people either don't even notice the small mistakes,
Right.
or if they do, they totally understand. They often just respect the fact that you're making the effort to speak their language.
That's so true. The fear we build up in our own heads is often way, way bigger than the reality of the situation.
So this points to a really key shift in mindset we saw mentioned again and again. Aim for progress, not perfection.
Yes, exactly. Forget being flawless. The goal is just to communicate, to get your ideas across, connect with someone.
Even if it's a bit messy sometimes.
Especially if it's messy at first. Prioritize just getting the message out. The more you actually do it, the more you lean into speaking, even imperfectly. The more natural it starts to feel, and the less scary it becomes over time.
Okay, so if fear is the block, and we need to practice the active skill, where do you start? How do you actually begin building that?
Well, the approach that seems to work best is simple, really. Start small.
Small steps.
Yeah, you don't need to jump into long, complicated conversations straight away.
Yeah.
It's about taking manageable steps, but doing them consistently, regularly.
Riley found something that worked for her was just repeating short phrases,
Oh,
or even
thanks.
single sentences she heard when listening.
Ah, okay.
It made practicing feel less scary, because
Mhm.
she wasn't trying to invent the language herself, just practice saying it.
That actually leads perfectly into a technique that gets recommended a lot, shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, what's that?
It's where you listen to a little bit of English audio, like maybe just a sentence or two from a podcast or a show, and then you immediately repeat it out loud. You try to copy the speaker's sound, the rhythm, the intonation, as closely as you can.
Oh, I see. Like being their echo, kind of.
Exactly like being their echo. Alex actually used this a lot with TV shows. He'd pause after a character said something and just repeat the line.
Did it feel weird at first, talking to the TV?
He said it definitely felt awkward initially, standing there talking back to the screen. But he really noticed his pronunciation started to improve, and the sort of natural flow of English sentences got better over time.
Interesting. So there's one small step. What else?
Another really simple way to start small, even if you don't have anyone to talk to, is just practicing talking about your everyday stuff, even just talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself. Okay, I know it sounds a bit strange.
It does. But it works. Just describe what you're doing as you do it, or maybe plan your day out loud.
Like, okay, I'm making breakfast now, or I think I'll wear my blue shirt today. Simple things like that.
Exactly, those kinds of things. These tiny zero-pressure moments help you get used to forming basic sentences, finding the words without any fear of someone judging you.
And like Alex found, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Not at all. The key is just doing it regularly. Make it a habit. The more you do it, the more those phrases just start to feel automatic. Easier to grab when you need them in a real chat.
Okay, so starting small, that makes sense. Now, building on that, let's talk about listening skills. Because most people in this situation are already good listeners, right?
That's the foundation we talked about. And yes, those strong listening skills, they're actually like a secret weapon for improving your speaking.
How so?
Well, think about it. All that listening fills up your brain's library with the actual building blocks of the language. The more you surround yourself with English, listening to podcasts, shows, music, conversations, the more you naturally absorb the patterns, the rhythms, the common phrases people really use.
So it's like you're stocking up on authentic examples.
Exactly. Riley said listening to podcasts was a total game changer for her. Because she wasn't just hearing words in isolation, she was hearing how people actually put them together in real, spontaneous conversations.
Yeah, you hear the flow, the interruptions.
Right. And listening helps you absorb not just the words, but the sounds, too. The pronunciation, the stress patterns, the melody of the language, and also the little nuances, like how native speakers use contractions all the time, saying I'm instead of I am, or don't instead of do not.
Things you don't always get from a textbook.
Precisely. Textbooks are great, but
Yeah.
they don't always capture that natural spoken stuff.
Alex had a really practical tip connected to this. He suggested actively listening for common phrases, things you hear again and again.
Okay, like what?
Well, say you keep hearing people use how's it going instead of the more formal how are you. He said, make a note of that. Maybe even write it down.
And then
practice saying that specific phrase yourself. Repeat it until it feels comfortable coming out of your mouth.
So you're actively taking useful chunks from your listening and making them your own.
Exactly. And there's another way to make listening more active for speaking practice. While you're listening to something, like a conversation scenario,
Yeah.
imagine you're actually in that situation and think, What would I say right now?
Oh, interesting. So, like, rehearse it in your head.
Yeah. For example, if you're listening to audio of someone ordering coffee,
Mm.
picture yourself at the counter. What would you say to order your drink?
Okay, I see.
Riley started doing this, and she said it made a huge difference.
Mm.
She felt much more prepared, less anxious when those situations actually came up in real life, because she'd already kind of practiced them mentally.
That makes a lot of sense. So really use all that listening you're already doing. Pay attention not just to what words mean, but how they sound and how they're used together.
Okay, great tips.
Mm.
But what about finding people to practice with? That's a big challenge for lots of learners, right? Not having a regular conversation partner.
It definitely is. But the experiences we looked at really showed you can create your own speaking practice, even if you're mostly on your own.
Like Alex did.
Exactly. He found really effective ways to get speaking practice in, even solo.
And the simplest one, as we mentioned before, is just talking to yourself.
Right. And it's not just narrating your actions, though that's a good start. You can also talk through your thoughts out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe summarize an article you just read or a video you watched, or even pretend you're explaining a topic you know about to someone else.
Like, okay, today I learned about, or my plan for the weekend is, first I'll, something like that.
Perfect. Making that a small, regular habit, even just a few minutes a day, really builds up that fluency muscle.
Yeah.
Getting the words flowing.
Are there other ways, maybe using technology?
Yeah. Another option that came up is language exchange apps. You probably know the ones. They connect you with people learning your language while you learn theirs.
Right, so it's a mutual exchange.
Exactly. It can be a more relaxed way to practice with a real person, often someone who understands the challenges because they're learning too.
And what about that technique Alex used? Recording himself.
Ah, yes, recording yourself speaking. This one seemed really powerful for him.
How did it work?
Basically, pick a topic, anything really. What you did today, your opinion on a movie, plans for dinner, talk about it out loud for, say, 30 seconds or a minute, and record it on your phone.
And then, the scary part.
Yeah.
Listen back.
Haha, yeah. Listening back can feel a bit strange at first, but it's incredibly useful.
Why? What does it help with?
Well, first, you hear things you might miss in the moment, like maybe bits of pronunciation that need work, or if you keep using the same hesitation word, or a grammar pattern you struggle with.
Okay, so identifying areas to improve.
Definitely. But just as importantly, maybe even more importantly, it builds confidence because you are actively hearing yourself producing English, successfully communicating ideas.
Oh, I see. You get proof that you can do it.
Exactly. Alex said recording helped him see his progress over time. He could hear himself getting better, and it made him feel much less nervous about talking to other people later because he'd already done so much safe practice on his own.
That's really smart. So whether it's talking to the cat, using an app, or recording yourself,
Yeah.
the main idea is just to make speaking happen regularly.
Yes. Integrate active speaking practice into your day. Somehow, some way, even tiny bits add up.
Okay, let's circle back to something we talked about near the start, mistakes. Because let's be real, when you start speaking more, mistakes are going to happen.
They absolutely are, guaranteed. And if you feel nervous about that, you are definitely not alone.
But the big message we got from looking at people's experiences was, don't fear the mistakes. Don't try to avoid them at all costs.
Right. They're actually, they're vital. Crucial for learning. You learn through them.
Riley shared some stories about making mistakes that felt, really embarrassing to her at the time.
Yeah.
But she found that usually the other person either didn't even seem to notice, or they just smiled, maybe laughed with her, not at her. It totally took the pressure off.
Yeah.
It showed her people were generally supportive, not sitting there waiting to criticize.
That's such an important realization. It helps reframe mistakes, doesn't it? See them not as failures, but as evidence. Proof that you're trying, you're using the language you're learning.
We're just a natural, necessary part of the journey to fluency.
Absolutely. So instead of getting stuck on a mistake, feeling bad about it, the shift is to quickly ask yourself, okay, what can I learn from that?
And then just move on.
And then move on. Don't dwell on it. Alex had a really practical system for this. He kept a little notebook.
Oh, yeah.
For what? If he noticed himself making a mistake, or if someone gently corrected him, he'd quickly jot it down later, just a quick note. Then, when he had a moment, he'd look it up. Find the correct way to say it, the right grammar. He basically turned those little errors into personalized mini lessons for himself.
That's brilliant. Taking something that feels negative and turning it into a concrete learning step.
Exactly. And alongside learning from mistakes, it's so important to keep your motivation up. And a key way to do that is to actively celebrate your progress.
Even the small stuff.
Especially the small stuff. Did you manage to use a new phrase you learned? Win. Did you talk to yourself in English for 5 minutes straight today? That's progress. Had a short chat without totally freezing up. Huge victory.
Acknowledge those moments. Give yourself credit.
Definitely. Remember, learning a language isn't a race. It's a long journey. Everyone goes at their own pace. Comparing yourself all the time to others, it's just not helpful. It usually just makes you feel bad.
Focus on your own path, your own improvements.
Yeah, focus on how far you've come. Try to find some enjoyment in the process of practicing, experimenting, getting better bit by bit. Mistakes aren't walls, they're just stepping stones. They show you where to build next.
That's a great way to put it. And remembering how far you've already come, just being able to understand English well, that itself should be motivation to keep taking those next steps towards speaking more confidently.
Absolutely. So just to kind of wrap things up, that feeling, that disconnect between understanding and speaking, it's normal. It comes from the difference between passive input and active output.
Right. And often the biggest barrier is just fear. Fear of mistakes, fear of judgment.
But changing your mindset, focusing on progress over perfection, seeing mistakes as learning tools, that's transformative.
And you can build that speaking confidence. Start small. Use techniques like shadowing or just talking to yourself about your day.
Leverage those great listening skills you already have. Actively notice useful phrases. Practice saying them. Imagine yourself in conversations.
Create your own practice chances, even if you're alone. Talk to yourself. Try an app. Record your voice. Make speaking a regular thing.
And, maybe most importantly, embrace the mistakes. Learn from them. Celebrate every single bit of progress you make. You've already built the foundation, the speaking part. It's the next layer, and you absolutely can build it with practice and the right attitude.
Definitely. So as we finish up this deep dive, here's maybe a final thought for you to ponder.
Yeah.
How does the simple act of trying to speak English, even just a little bit each day, how does that start to change not just what you can do with the language, but how you actually see yourself as an English learner? What kind of shift happens in your identity when you begin to actively use that voice you've been building inside?